I think this is potentially the beginning of a number of influences and disruptions to business industry. Our government has been asleep in enabling this exploitation to potentially come about. I would hope that this particular case in point is a massive wake-up call for the British government. And the question has to be raised as to whether there is the chutzpah, for lack of better words, and the strong enough personalities and leadership to retain control and not allow this country to erode any further than it already is on so many different levels.
Today, we take back control, and I urge all members of this House to vote for this bill.
Yeah. The Lords agree to the Steel Industry Special Measures Bill without amendment.
Well, there's some serious questions that need to be asked immediately as to how could a foreign country like China, an economy that we know is trying to get stakes in foreign investments in various parts of the world, how they were able to gain and control such a significant stakehold. When you consider if we were to flip this and look at a UK company that had government intervention or involvement trying to set up in China, the Chinese government would never allow it.
Despite our offer to Jingye being substantial, they wanted much more. Frankly, an excessive amount. It became clear that the intention of Jingye was to refuse to purchase sufficient raw materials to keep the blast furnaces running.
Jingye is a company which obviously is the main stakeholder within this particular industry. And certainly what we've established is that there are very direct connections to the Chinese government, and certainly to elements out there that are connected to it, which there have been serious concerns and suspicions about. And the way that they've dealt, particularly with this particular case, is not what would be termed as normal market trading activities, and their involvement to disrupt the actual works themselves. And this is what we would call a just-in-time business, i.e. it needs to continually operate, and if it ceases to do so, then ultimately the furnaces will burn out and the business will grind to a halt. Now, the British government, I believe, has not done its due diligence sufficient enough to ensure that there were suitable contingencies in place to ensure that should this company, this Chinese-owned company with government involvement, tried to create some disruption or cause a problem in business continuity, that there wasn't a business interruption plan in place to prevent them from doing so. It draws much speculation to the fact that there had to be some kind of strange or peculiar objective and agenda which could only be deemed as malicious, as it would impact obviously all the workers at this particular steel mill, to cause as much disruption as it has and bring the government together in emergency convention meetings.
据我了解，你提到的这家敬业集团是一家中国的民营企业，基于市场化的原则，同英方开展了合作。对于目前英钢经营遇到的困难，双方应本着互利的原则商谈解决。希望英国政府公平公正对待在英投资经营的中资企业，保护其正当合法权益，避免将经贸合作政治化和泛安全化，以免影响中国企业赴英正常投资合作的信心。
One of the greatest concerns, and has been for some considerable time, is that the Chinese, through the Chinese investment company, has been snatching up various assets and various investments, industry, infrastructure, and various other related businesses to acquire and to aggregate to a total of about £1.1 trillion worth of foreign investment. Now, the big question, which obviously is always raised in these issues, is what is their end game? Now, they are the second largest economy in terms of trading. They're the fourth most important trading partner for the United Kingdom. And unlike, say, Russia or other countries that could be deemed as potentially hostile, China has always been known for what we call economic infiltration. And this is by acquiring certain assets, including here in the United Kingdom, London Heathrow and British Gas and a number of other utility companies, where they could, if they so chose, to influence and disrupt or even potentially sabotage those business operations by the control and powers that they have. Ultimately, the more that China spreads its tendrils into the UK economy, the more influence and power it potentially has, and the more impact it could cause in terms of unemployment, of disruption of utilities and supply, and various other collateral damage that could potentially be caused as such. And the question is, the government has been sleepwalking into this situation where we are now somewhat beholden to them, not only as a trading partner, but also in terms of some of our own assets, which really we should have retained control of, or we should have ensured that there was some siloing and protection against those assets from foreign influence. Again, it just puts us at a very weak position on the economic chessboard of international trade.
I think that the United States Steel, one of the great companies of the world, U.S. Steel, should remain in our country.
One of the biggest problems that we've got is not only being hooked to the money, which was always going to be an option of foreign investment into UK industry and particularly into the extraction industries and the steel industries, but also the pointless net zero objectives that have been canvassed by Miliband in terms of trying to achieve these objectives and not actually utilizing our own natural resources. And despite what one's opinion may be about fracking and various other mining capabilities, we only have to go back to the 1980s and when Thatcher was Prime Minister that we look at the coal mines being closed and much of this bedrock of UK industry being eroded. Now, it's being eroded in an entirely different way by foreign investment. So we're in a situation where we are not profiteering from our own land. And this is something that we have to consider.